Afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our presentation on Kemet. And today we're going to do several things. We're going to go into the pyramid, specific pyramid, step pyramid, great pyramids of Giza. We're going to look at the symbols of the Ankh. We're going to do a Hermocket. You know them as the Great Sphinx. We're going to look at the educational system. We're going to look at the medical system. The first thing I thought would be appropriate to do is get rid of some myths. And since it's Sunday, I wanted to talk about the attributes, representations, aspects of God in Kemetic culture. It is erroneously thought that they worship all of these images. And today I want to give some light on that. I want to get some clarifications to actually what was happening. So we can get a better understanding of that and things today. So Kemetic people view the oneness of God and believed in one supreme God. Everything in nature has essential unity in God. E.A. Wallace Budge, who studies all the ancient Kemetic literature, states in his book Osiris and the Egyptian Resurrection, quote, "There was never a time when the Kemites did not believe in one great God, monotheism. This God was nameless, incomprehensible, and self-created." Our beloved brother, A.C.A. Hillard, further explains, quote, "Kemetic people believe that any facet of nature could be studied to cover principles of nature's operations, or put another way, aspects of God. This allowed for the use of many natural objects as symbols of divine principles. It was the ancient Kemetic people's attempt to live in harmony with nature's principles or God's manifestations, not many gods or polytheism, that led them to develop the earliest morale teachers, and forms of worship to institutionalize those teachings. Now, the oldest complete text in human history is the teachings of Ptah-hotep. And he was a teacher, a sage, a scribe who lived 2,350 years before the Christian era. And I want to show you, you want to get your hand on, you can look and see the book. You see that? That's the 37 teachers of Ptah-hotep, and it's the oldest book in recorded history. It's a book of wisdom, and it has many things, answers that we deal with today in this book. The 37 short teachings of Ptah-hotep are part of a genre of literature referred to as wisdom and spoken word. Ptah-hotep can be read for embedded wisdom on many topics. He begins his teachings for the son of the Pharaoh or Pharaoh with a prayer to God. Now, there's several people who, I'll just start with Amen-M-Op. Amen-M-Op was in the 20th dynasty. He was a sage under Pharaoh Ramesses of the Pyramid Age. And I want to read something from his book. It's called Africa. Well, actually, it's out of Dr. Yusef Ben Johannes, Africa, Mother of Western Civilization. And here Dr. Ben is going to show the comparative works of Amen-M-Op from his book related to Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 17, which is the teachings of Solomon. And I want to give you a comparison. I want you to see the similarity. So I want to start with King Solomon, Proverbs. Now, Solomon's is written 970 before the Christian era, whereas Amen-M-Op is written 1,300 years before the Christian era. So Solomon says, "Incline thine ear and hear my words. Apply thine heart to apprehend. For it is pleasant if thou keep them in thy belly, that thy might may be fixed like a peg upon thy lips. Eminem Oak says, remember this is 400 years before, give thine ear and hear what I say. Apply thine heart to apprehend. It is good for thee to place them in thine heart. Let them rest in the casket of thy belly, that they may act as a peg upon thy tongue. And I'm going to read you one more. Again from Solomon, verse 20. Have I not written for thee 30 sayings of counsels and knowledge, that thou mayest make known truth to him that speaketh? Eminem Oak says, consider these 30 chapters. They delight, they instruct knowledge how to answer him that speaketh, and how to carry back a report to one that sent him. And I want to stop there on that. The 30, it's interesting, 30 chapters. So basically, Eminem Otep is saying he's got these 30 sayings, which, by the way, you can see the Nation of Islam, Chicago. Dr. Yusuf bin Johannan has the book. Before he died, he willed it to the Nation of Islam. But that's in his collection, which is over 12,000 books. So it actually is 30 chapters. And isn't it a coincidence? The Proverbs is 31. So somewhat, and they're basically identical. Now, to further substantiate what I'm saying, I want to go to Caucasian from England and his book, The Teaching of Amen M. Oak and the Book of Proverbs. Now, this shows you all the comparisons, the similarities. It also shows you, he goes into Song of Solomon, and he goes into James in the New Testament in the Bible, chapter 5, and shows his similarities. And so he says the relationship between these two wisdom books is so evident, even to a superficial reader, that it has necessarily attracted more attention than any other question to which the discovery of the Egyptian book has given rise. Furthermore, Dr. Yosef bin Johannan tells us in Black Man of the Nile, he says, the above comparisons that I just read are but a choice few of the selecting sayings of the entire so-called Proverbs of King Solomon of Israel, which have been earmarked for cross-reference. However, the entire Psalms, Songs of Solomon, and all the Holy Torah, the Jewish Bible generally, are full of direct copies of work written word for word as their African, parenthesis, Egyptian, Nubian, Ethiopian, Murrayite, etc., sayings and teachings. So I want to go a little bit further and show you something from Anthony Braxton. Yeah. This brother is the 19th dynasty. This is Akhenaten. And he believed in the one supreme God. We're going to find him, his work. And by the way, this is his beautiful wife, Nefertiti. We're going to find his work in Psalms 104. Let me find it for you. Which is supposedly written by David. And you can compare, I'm going to take 2 paragraphs from that. So Akhenaten's hymn, which is 1353 years before the Christian era, Psalms 104, which is probably David, so they say, is 1,000 years before the Christian era. It says, the world, Akhenaten, the world is in darkness like the dead. Every lion cometh forth from his den, all serpents sting, darkness reigns. Psalms 104 says, thou makest the darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. The young lions roar after their prey. Akhenaten says, all trees and plants flourish. The birds flutter in the marshes. All sheep dance upon their feet. Psalms 104 says, the trees of the Lord are full of sap, wherein the birds make their nests. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats. And so those are some of the people who, some of the things that have been borrowed from the ancient Kemetic people. And I want to show you, go a little deeper into basically the belief system of the forces of nature in relation to God in the Kemetic societies. The universe was viewed as the omnipotent expression of one great supreme being, which manifested itself within all the functions and principles that govern the universe and maintain balance and harmony. These facets of the one supreme God were referred to collectively as a netcherer. That's Netcherer. And individually as netcher, Netcher. Each manifestation of a netcher was associated with a divine aspect of God and was represented by a specific symbol. As time passed, the netchery became known as the many forces of nature. For example, the God of water, the God of air, and the God of the earth, etc. We have this book, Masjidun-Nur Inc. The Europeans, when they found this, and it's a compilation of pyramid texts found in many pyramids, starting with the step pyramid we're going to look at in a minute. And they call it the Book of the Dead. But actually, the proper name is the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. And it talks about the Medu Netcher. Medu, M-E-D-U, means words. Netcher, again, aspects of God, words of God. And so this is what you would find in the pyramids, Medu Netcher. You know it, we know it today as the hieroglyphics. When the Greeks took over, they called it hieroglyphics. But it talks about the life of the pharaoh, the people, but it also talks about everlasting life once we leave this planet in the Kemetic eyes. So, and this was a compilation of many pyramids, starting with the Steppe Pyramid, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Also, in this book, you will find scenes of going to heaven. You have the conception of heaven, the soul of man going to heaven, the soul of man sitting on a throne by the side of God, the heavenly blessed eating from the tree of life, God molding man from clay, God breathing the breath of life into man's nostrils, the concept of creation through the spoken word, moral concepts of good and evil, and traditions of hell and hellfire. And these are some of the scenes you would see in the pyramids, if you can see that. You would see these type of things, talking about the afterlife and things that are going on in everyday life. You see those symbols we're going to talk about in a second around their heads. Actually, those symbols, so I'll give you an example. They may have a falcon head on top of it, or something that resembles a falcon. And the falcon represents analysis, deep eyesight. And the falcon is a symbol for the sun and light because of its rapid flight and its ability to soar into the highest regions of the air when the light abounds. A little bit later, I'm gonna go deeper into that. When we start talking about the male and female spiritual principles of Kemet, we can go deeper into that. And so again, this book probably starts in the 3rd dynasty when you start seeing these when the step pyramid is built. Any questions before I go any further? You all good? All right, so I want to talk about the step pyramid and I want to show you some pictures. Going again to our brother Dr. Seth Ben Johanan in Black Man of the Nile. This pyramid is a shift of the traditional tombs that were happening. Sorry, lost my page. There we go. Okay, so right here, you can see that that is the step pyramid with its court. The enclosed wall, you see it going around, that wall was originally 1,800 feet and 900 feet wide with more than a square mile of land, all in there. Right here, you see the southern end of that step pyramid. And then here you see the inside. Well, I don't know if we can see that. Yeah, the inside. The next thing you're going to see is the colonnade. I'm sorry. So right across the street, you're going to find 15 royal pyramids right in there. So this was a complex, and they call it the Saqqara complex. Also in there, you had the colonnades. Now in this picture, you see 4 of them. You see a little bit more, I'm sorry, right here, 4 of them. Actually, there are 42 of them, and they represented the 42 provinces of Kemet. This pyramid was designed by Imhotep. He's the architect responsible for designing the step pyramid. He is the world's first multi-genius, and his brilliance superseded his architectural ability. He was also revered as an astronomer, philosopher, poet, and physician. And we're going to go a little bit further about him a little bit later on. I want to tell you a little bit more about this step pyramid. And I'm going to give you another picture of it as I read this. You see that? Yep. So you see it has 6 tiers. And if you go to the 7th, you'll be in the sky. And that's where Miles Davis was influenced to write 7 Steps to Heaven, looking at this step pyramid of Saqqara. It was built around 26 before the Christian era for a king of the 3rd dynasty named Zoser. His pyramid rises to a height of 197 feet in a series of 6 box-like steps called mastapas, an Arabic word which means mud benches. The early mastabas were small rectangular tombs in which the bodies of nobles were buried during the early dynastic period in Kemet. The step pyramid of Zoser represents a profound shift in the construction of the traditional tomb. In this instance, 6 mastabas were built, one on top of the other. Each of the 5 mastabas was smaller than the one beneath it. This created a tiered monument that symbolically represented a stairway to heaven. The completed structure was encased in polished limestone. Thus, the first pyramid was born. And I just thought of something. I remember the OJs had a song, Stairway to Heaven. Y'all remember that? So that, again, that was an influence. And that's what he was referring to. It's just so great when you go there, when you go up, and you see that. Any questions? That was the 3rd dynasty. The next dynasty is going to have 3 great pyramids, which actually is going to give us the designs for the pyramids that are still in existence. Now, there were approximately 110 pyramids built in Kemet, and they're still counting because they still find more. Many are buried under the sun. Under the sand. To give us information about the 3 pyramids of Sneferu, I want to go to my brother, Professor Manuel Ampum, in his book, A History of African Civilizations. And the first pyramid that Sneferu attempts to build through architects is called the Medium, M-E-I-D-D-U-M, Medium Pyramid. It was built for him, and this is it right here. Now here's the problem. It's built on a 90-degree angle, so they couldn't complete it. But the next pyramid they built is called the Bent Pyramid, which is this right here. And it's a changed angle of the slopes, causing a unique bent shape. It stood 344 feet in height. And finally, the modern day pyramids, most of the ones you see going in the next dynasties, is called the Northern Pyramid or the Red Pyramid. And it's a triangular pyramid, 341 feet in height, and its slopes have an angle of 43 degrees. So this is the first true pyramid. The ones when you travel today and you see most of them, they're in this shape, and they're modeled after Sneferu's Northern Pyramid. His son, Sneferu's son, goes and builds the eighth wonder of the world. That's where I got the idea for Nubian Cave Essentials. See that right there? He influenced me. The largest one is Khufu. Khufu is the son of Sneferu. And then you have, let me find it for you now. This one right here is called the Great Pyramid. It's by Khufu, and it's what it stands like. See that? 480 feet, 750 feet. Well, you see how long that is? And then there's three lower pyramids are smaller, and there's two by the side of him. And I'm going to show you those in a second. So you have Khafi's right here, Khufu's right here, and Menkaure right here. And you have three. Can you see that? Actually, I don't like this picture. Throws it off. Let me give you a clearer picture. All right. See those three? Those are the three queens. They're queens. Now, there's some other ones, and perhaps someone who's been there can explain. There's some other pyramids been there, around there. I haven't been there. I couldn't find any information about the other ones. Maybe someone could share it. Has anybody been to the Great Pyramids? So are there other pyramids there?
Yes, there are other pyramids. Those small ones, they said, are for the queens or lesser nobles than the king.
Okay.
So no kings were buried in the smaller ones, just the larger ones.
Okay. Are there any other ones other than those three smaller ones though? Because in some of the pictures I looked at, it looked like there was some more.
I don't remember seeing any more than that. But you know, there might be some in other areas. They just focus on the ones in Giza more so than other areas throughout Egypt.
Okay. Okay. And so I just want to talk about some more of the dimensions of the Great Pyramid. When it was originally constructed, the Great Pyramid rose to a height of 481 feet, 201 stair-step tiers. Unfortunately, the last 12 courses of stone and the capstone were removed at some undisclosed point in time. All that remains today is a 20 by 20 foot platform at its apex and a wood frame which indicate its original height. Since its construction, the Great Pyramid has withstood 2 ruinous assaults at the hands of Arabs who had little or no regard for its historic significance. These attacks were an obvious indication that this structure represented a culture that was foreign to the Arabs, and in their eyes was therefore unworthy of their respect. Dr. Elmore D. Robinson, a world-renowned mathematician at Johns Hopkins University, studied the Great Pyramid and made this observation. The analysis and mathematical modeling of the Great Pyramid indicates that the ancient Egyptians had a knowledge of geometry and mathematics which few historians and archaeologists will give them credit for. The evidence is strong that they knew of and used quadratic equations and the quadratic formula. They most certainly had a system of logarithms, used combinations of integers with an irrational number, and used an infinite geometrical progression having many unique properties. Khufu was the son of Sneferu, as I said, and the builder of the Great Pyramid. The so-called father of history, Herodotus, informs us how great and awesome this pyramid was. In his book, The History of Herodotus, page 125, he says, the pyramid itself was 20 years in the building. It is a square 800 feet each way, built entirely of polished stone fitted together with the utmost care. The stones of which it is composed are none of them less than 30 feet in length. After laying the stones for the base, they raise the remaining stones to their places by means of machines formed of short wooden planks. There is an inscription in Egyptian characters on the pyramid which records the quantity of radishes, onions, and garlic consumed by the laborers who constructed it. And I perfectly well remember that the interpreter who read the writing to me said that the money expended in this was about 1,600 talents of silver. A talent in ancient Egypt contained about 56 pounds of silver. So the modern equivalent of 1,600 talents would be the value of 89,000 pounds of silver. If this then is a true record, what a vast sum must have been spent on the iron tools used in the work and on the feeding and clothing of the laborers. Considering the length of time the work lasted, which has already been stated, and the additional time, no small space I imagine, which must have been occupied by the quarrying of the stones, their conveyance, and the formation of the underground apartments. So they were fed well, they had apartments, they were paid well, and they were esteemed, they were smart. Traditionally, we hear that they were slaves and they didn't know anything. That's pretty much erroneous. It's a fallacy. Any questions? About 5 miles, well, not even 5 miles from there, you'll see this great edifice. You know it as the Great Sphinx. Its proper name is Harmaket. See, you see the Great Pyramid right over there. Now, it's a whole different world from the Great Sphinx. Everybody can see that this is male, representing all of humans though, male and female. It has the body of a lion, and of course a human being head. The Sphinx, as we get into a little bit later, is a female, and the Greeks did not think highly of women. The Sphinx is an evil creature. This one is the triumph of a good over evil. So Her and Makhet, H-E-R-E-M-A-K-H-E-T, Heru on the horizon. We talked about Heru, the son of Asar and Set. And it's a reflection of the sun. It's the face of Heru and the body of a reclining lion. Let me give you another one. See? Body of a lion. Medu Neter. Accomplishments. The words of the ruler. After its creation, it was called the Sphinx by Greek travelers and settlers. But to the people of Kemet, the lion's body represented rulership. And the face of Heru symbolizes divine wisdom. The statue is a metaphor for the capacity within every human being to master, as a mammal, one's lower animal nature by identifying with higher concepts intellectually and diligently pursuing one's destiny. Carved in situ, S-U-T-I, out of one single massive stone, her Makhet majestically faces the sun of the eastern horizon. Its name also means Heru, sun, a nature, in other words, an aspect of God, a place where the sun sets and rises. We go a little further with Brother Anthony Bowser. He'll tell us a little bit more about this. 1 second. And I said, I'm sorry, browser. So this great statue right here is 240 feet long and 66 feet high. It has a shoulder span of 38 feet, a head that is almost 14 feet wide, and a 7-foot smile. Her Makhet represents a perfect blend of art, architecture, mystery, and magnificence. It integrates the essence of man and animal in such a way that expresses the divine relationship between the two. This is not your typical anthropomorphic statue. Symbolically, the body of the beast represents the animal, nature, which exists in man. And the lion exemplifies the royalty and power of the divine spirit that exists in its lower physical form. The head of a man symbolizes the intelligence of the mind, which must be cultivated in order to elevate the consciousness into a higher spiritual state so that it may become divine. Metaphorically speaking, it is the suppression of the lower animal nature and the refinement of the thought process that leads to the spiritual evolution of man. Spiritually speaking, it is only by conquering the beast within that one is capable of truly knowing God. End of quote. That's my brother from Nile Valley Contribution Civilization, Exploding the Myths, Anthony T. Browder. And so I have utilized this in teaching, particularly with young Black males, many of whom had anger issues, and they may be in a bad mood about something. Many of them didn't have a father image, and they could get upset about something, and immediately they would go to the mammal in them and react instead of thinking, responding, going to a higher level. And so I had a lot of success in teaching this. They got it. I said, if you think, calm down, most of the time you get out of it. And even if you make the mistake, you rationally understand the mistake you made and won't do it again. It also represents good over evil. Remember Set, we talked about the evil one? Well, remember Heru defeated Set, which was the devil. Brother Browder tells us knowledge comes from enlightenment, which is a good God, which vanquishes the darkness, ignorance of evil, the devil. Heru represents the conquest of good over evil, Set, Satan. And Hermaket exemplifies the eternal conquest of good over evil because he faces the eastern horizon and is physically enlightened by the sun as it rises each morning. And remember, the sun is the highest manifestation in Kemetic nature of God's power and energy. Now, it's called the Sphinx now, but the Sphinx in Greek mythology was a winged monster with a lion's body and the head and breast of a woman. This beast was perched upon a rock near Thebes in Greece, not Kemet, and asked the riddle of every passerby. All those who were unable to answer the riddle correctly were strangled by the Sphinx. And this myth is derived from the tragedy Oedipus Rex, which was written by the Greek playwright Sophocles. The riddle asked by the Sphinx was, what has one voice and goes on 4 feet, on 2 feet, and on 3, but the more feet it goes, on the weaker it be. In the myth, Oedipus is traveling to Thebes when he is confronted by the Sphinx, who asks him the riddle. Oedipus responded, man who crawls on all 4s as a baby, then walks on 2 legs as an adult, and walks with a cane in old age. Having solved the riddle, the Sphinx immediately committed suicide by jumping off a cliff, and Oedipus continued his journey to Thebes, where he was later proclaimed king for having outsmarted the great beast. This myth vividly illustrates how the Greeks borrowed, plagiarized, and distorted seriously elements of Kemetic art, symbolism, and philosophy. Before the statue of Hermaket, there were no images of human-headed lions in the world. And since its creation in Kemet, sphinxes have been found among the remains of ancient civilizations such as Assyria, Phoenicia, and those of Asia Minor. As was the case with the other nations, sphinxes began to surface in Greece only after contact had been made with the people of Kemet. Interestingly, when the Greeks created a statue similar design to Hermaket, they defiled it by making it evil and portraying it as a female because of their low regard for women. Any questions as we go further? Comments? Everybody good? All right. The next thing I want to talk about is energy, a symbol of energy, electricity, life. It's on the papyrus of Ani, the Ankh. Here's that Ankh. It's an energetic symbol. And the Ankh right there, the oval represents and honors mothers. It honors the African matriarchal system. It is the womb of a woman. And then, let me give you another picture of it. Various pictures. Here's another one. Energetic. And I want to, I'm sorry, I want to tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, I'm sorry. So the Ankh was the ancient Kemetic symbol for life. It represented the unification of the feminine and masculine forces in the universe and the creation of new life. It portrays both the physical and spiritual aspects of life. Symbolically, the oval represents the womb, the vertical shaft represents and depicts the phallus, and the horizontal bar expresses the coming into existence of a new life, resulting from the union of man and woman. In the book you're looking at, it talks about the electric magnetic forces of the Ankh. It generates electrical and mechanical forces. If you go by it, the life energy emanating from the Ankh can be absorbed by anyone within a certain proximity. An Ankh served as an antenna or conduit for the divine purpose of life that permeates the universe. It symbolizes the symbols of life depicting the many aspects of God in natures. It is also a symbol of the Mahat system that I'll be talking to you about in a few minutes. So it symbolizes completeness, life eternity, and fertility. It symbolizes man and women. Any comments, questions about the Ankh? Okay. I'd like now to talk about the educational system in Kemet. Our brother Asa G. Hillard III, when he was with us, he stated after he studied and went to Kemet so many times that Africa had developed the most sophisticated system of education to be found in early records. He continues, the African system of education, especially its classical expression in ancient Kemet, was the parent of other systems and educations, especially early European education in Greece. And that Fatah Hotep work we talked about, the 37 short teachings, we see the Kemetic theme of Spa, or the quest to know, to study, to become wise. So Talia, Sister Farrakhan, am I saying that right? SBA, Saba. It's the educational philosophy that went around the Kemetic education, and it's the quest to know, to study, to become wise. I just wanted to make sure I was saying it right. Brother Hillard tells us that there was the male and female philosophy that also hovered around the educational system. The overall aim of education was the dividing principles of Jehuti and Mahat. Jehuti is a male principle. Mahat is a female principle. So Hudi is the masculine wisdom principle of God, writing, and learning. Mahat is the female principle of God, and it represents 7 cardinal virtues, the keys to human perfectibility: truth, justice, harmony, propriety, law, order, and reciprocity. And I'm going to show you a picture of both principles. Here's the true Jehuti. You see it? You see him with that falcon head, because that's analysis, keen eyesight, like a falcon. Falcons can see far away. All right, this is what you're supposed to have in education. It's the male principle. The female principle is Mahat, which is right here. And 7 cardinal virtues, which would be, again, truth, justice, propriety, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. And this is what the educational system, the principles were based on. The highest learning center was called Wasat. And this is where, at one time, there were 80,000 people in the university. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, there were 80,000 people in the university, and they had several courses of studies, levels that you had to master. And they called them Hersetha, or teachers of mysteries. Now, it wasn't a mysteries to our ancestors, but it was mysteries to the European when they came, the Greeks, but they couldn't figure out what they were talking about. So the first level was the mystery teachers of heaven, which was astronomy and astrology. The second was the mystery teachers of all lands, which was geography. The third level was the mystery teachers of the depths, geology. The fourth level was the mystery teachers of the secret word, philosophy and theology. And the fifth, the mystery of Pharaoh and mystery teachers who examine words, law, and communication. Ancient Kemet was a high-tech society. It required literal armies of educated people. And the first step in the formal process of general education was training as a scribe, a highly honored profession. Remember, Ptah-hotep was a scribe. Amenem-Op was a scribe. The route to sacred or secular office was through the scribal schools. The process of education was not seen primarily as a process of acquiring knowledge. It was seen as a process of the transformation of the learner who progressed through successive stages of rebirth to become more godlike. Some students of ancient Kemet, and I'm reading Asa Hillard now, have described the education system as practical, as lacking in a desire to pursue knowledge for its own sake. He goes on to say, as if the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake represented a higher and more advanced concept than practical education. Kemetic education can be described as functional, a blend of theory and practice, a holistic education. Brother Hiller goes on, I remain unconvinced that education for its own sake or learning for the love of learning is a more lofty goal than education to become more like the supreme creator. Put another way, should education be for its own sake or for God's sake? Asa Hiller. Now going back to Waset, that university, it meant in Kemetic the scepter. It was renamed Thebes by later Greek invaders. It was renamed Luxor by still later Arab invaders. And Waset were two gigantic temples that contained the most highly developed education system on record from ancient times. One temple, the southern Ipet, now called by the Arabic name the Temple of Luxor, was located in the south of the city of Waset. It was connected to the largest temple of ancient times, the Ipet Uset, called Karnak by the Arabs. These magnificent buildings existed long before there was a Greece, and even longer before Greeks would conquer Kemet under Alexander the Great. Ipet Uset meant the most selected places, or the holiest of places. It was both a center of religion and education, since the two could not be separated in the minds of the Kemetic people. It housed an elite faculty of priest professors. It has been estimated that at one time there were more than 80,000 students at all grade levels studying at Ipet Uset University. And that's from Brother Abdullah, 1984, in his book. the Great Kemetic Society. Ipet what was like all other lesser temples in Kemet's Nile Valley. Every temple had a faculty and a library. They were an important part of the culture. And so that educational system is something that we should really be looking at today. And I think there's something that I know Sister Talia Munir and me, we had a lot of success with the students because I guess we were holistic. We believed in the practical application of it and tying everything to what we were doing today and what we could do in the future, realizing what our ancestors did. And I think that a lot of educators really need to look at what the Kemetic people did, and we would have much more success with our students today. The last thing I want to talk about are the medicine schools. And I want to go back to the father of medicine, the real father of medicine. And that's this brother here, Imhotep. I'm going to talk a little bit about him, and then we're going to talk about Hippocrates. But Imhotep is very important to learn about. To be practical, the same place that me and Miss Munir worked at Wiggins, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, I used to give them this from Dr. Ben. This is a copy of the Oath of Aesopus. The Greeks called it Aesopus. It's the Oath of Imhotep. I used to make copies of this and get them to them. And I said, now, when you go to the doctor's office, you're going to see the Hippocrates Oath, or Hippocratic Oath. And I want you to tell them that this is the real oath, and that Hippocrates lived 2,000–3,000 years after him. He learned at his school. And you know what? When they did this, more than a few times, the doctor would tell them, I didn't know this. And they wouldn't be upset because he had the evidence here, the word. And they said at the bottom, Aesopus is the name of the ancient Greeks gave to their African god Imhotep. This African, during his prominence as a philosopher, poet, architect, builder, physician, etc., predated the birth of the first European physician, Hippocrates, by more than 2,000 years. And so that was a great learning tool for them. J.A. Rogers in World's Great Men of Color, he tells us about Brother Imhotep. A lot of great things he says about him. And he states, Imhotep diagnosed and treated more than 200 diseases, among them 15 diseases of the stomach, 11 of the bladder, 10 of the rectum, 29 of the eyes, and 18 of the skin. He knew how to detect disease by the shape, color, or condition of the visible parts of the body, as the skin, hair, nails, and tongue. He treated spinal tuberculosis, gallstones, gout, rheumatoid arthritis, mastoid diseases, and dental caries. He practiced surgery, knew of association, auscultation, and extracted medicine from plants. He was also familiar with the position and function of the stomach, the lungs, and other vital organs. He knew of the circulation of blood, which is 4,000 years before it was known in Europe. And so that was Imhotep. The first dentist was Hesere of the 3rd dynasty. The first known female doctor in world history was Pesheshet, and she was of the 3rd dynasty. So these are the great people of Kemet as far as the doctors. And then we have about 10 medical papyruses from Kemet. And the first one is called the Hearst Medical Papyrus. And you can find this at the University of Berkeley. It has about 18 pages and deals with the urinary system, blood, hair, teeth, and bites, among other issues. All right, it's from the 18th dynasty, and this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that, but this is the papyrus is on. Then you have some other ones. You have the Ebers Papyrus, which is a compilation of medical texts dated about 1550 before the Christian era. And it's the oldest complete text dealing with internal medicine. It contains 877 formulas and folk remedies meant to cure afflictions ranging from crocodile bite to toenail pain, and to rid the house of such pests as flies, mice, and scorpions. It also includes an accurate description of the circulatory system, noting the existence of blood vessels throughout the body and the heart's function as the center of the blood supply. It is 66 feet long and deals with 877 cases concerning internal medicine. It specifically deals with diseases and the diagnosis and treatment for illnesses and ailments, diseases of the digestive system, the head, the skin, obstetrics, gynecology, dentistry, arthritis, tumors, burns, and dermatology. And you can get that information. Here it is. Here's a picture of it. And you can get it from my brother here, History of African Civilizations. My brother here. And then there's one more I want to talk about. This is called the so-called Edwin Smith Papyrus. It's not really Edmund Smith, but this was a British surgeon who traveled to Kemet, and he found the oldest surgical document in the world. So this one is going to be about surgery, operations. And I'm going to go back to my brother again, Manu Appam, and then I'm going to go a little bit into browser because it'll give us a little bit more. He tells us it describes 48 cases of injuries from the top of the skull down to the base of the spine, and is believed that this document may have originally contained about 96 cases. Each case is presented in a logical and systematic manner: title, examination, diagnosis, and treatment. After the title, each case is presented in a systematic diagnostic format, including a history. Quote, example, if you treat a man for, and then you have the diagnosis, then you say about him, and then you give the treatment. This step-specific approach to solving the patient's problem is the same method taught in modern medical schools today. The 48 cases address the following injuries: 27 head, 6 throat and neck, 2 collarbone, 3 arms, 8 sternum and ribs, 1 shoulder, 1 spine. And I want to read Brother Browser. Anthony Browder, he's going to give us a little bit more about that. He's going to talk about how it really helped women and some of the problems that women were having. So he says, by 2000 BC, before the Christian era, physicians in Kemet had already created an effective organic chemical contraceptive. This product consisted of acacia spikes, honey, and dates, which were mixed in a specific ratio and inserted into the vagina. Modern science has since discovered that acacia spikes contain lactic acid, which is a natural chemical spermicide. Pregnancy and fetal sex tests were conducted by Nile Valley physicians who soaked bags of wheat and barley in a sample of a woman's urine. Urine from a pregnant woman was known to accelerate the growth of certain plants. If the barley sprouted, it meant that the woman was pregnant and was going to give birth to a female child. And if the wheat sprouted, it meant that she would give birth to a male child. The urine pregnancy test was not rediscovered by modern science until 1926, and the wheat barley sex determination test was not developed until 1933. And we could go on and on about the great medical things that happened. And our last thing I'm going to conclude with is the medical system. So if you wanted to go to medicine school, you had to go through this school. And I'm going to give you some information that comes from my brother who just departed us, Layla of Africa. His book, African Holistic Health. And he's going to talk about the medicinal system, how advanced it was, and the levels that you had to go through. He starts by telling us that the medical practitioners of Africa received formal education by being initiated in the mystery system. But he said it was, as I've said earlier, it really wasn't a mystery to the Kemetic people. It was a mystery to the Europeans because it was so complex. The students initiates could participate in the education on a general educational level called the exoteric level, or on a higher level called esoteric. Now, this is different from what we talked about before. So this is another level you're going to have to go through. So you would do those 7 years with those 5 we talked about. But if you wanted to be a doctor, you had to go to this higher level. Now, the higher level on the first level of being a doctor was called the exoteric learning. That wasn't the highest level. That was the level that Hippocrates was when he went to Kemet. So he only spent 2 years. This thing could take 10 to 14 years. It had 7 degrees, levels or steps of learning before completion. The first degree educates you in the course or base aspects of medicine is known as pastophorus. This system is not confined to medicine and includes all known and unknown sciences. However, the initiate could be educated for a specific area major or talent or combination of area majors. In any case, upon completion of the first degree, the student advances to the neochorus degree, which focuses on the structural energy of medicine, such as the energy of shapes, squares, pyramids, triangle, tetrons. The Greeks call it obelisks. Then the Melophoneus degree is studied, whereby the student learns the energy forces of non-polarized energy, such as the melanin DNA energy state, which is created between the death and life state. In the Castorius degree, the student learns how to will the inherent law of plants, crystal metals, colors, magnets, music. And then in the 5th degree of Malahite, the student learns the science of nature and interactions of alchemic laws. In the 6th degree of Astronomus, the student learns cycles, astrology, and the manipulations of the cosmic forces and their reaction in the cells, thoughts, biochemistry, organs, bones, emotions, vitamins, and minerals in the body and on the galaxy. In the 7th degree, the propheta, the student learns all the secrets of the higher mystery system and becomes a god, a master, a PhD. Brother Africa tells us, interestingly, in African culture, if a chicken had offspring, children, they were called chickens. And if God had children, man, they could be called gods. The title of God was earned via the mystery system and the application of Mahat in daily life. The course completion could take up to 13 years or more. Today, the course has to be adapted, reduced, and translated and put in a language conducive to the social condition Africans are in, white supremacy. It has to be used as technology. It has to be used as technology for African liberation. The selection of a student into the exoteric mystery system will take from 2 to 3 years. Hippocrates spent at the most extreme estimate 2 or years less in Africa. His knowledge of medicine would have been exoteric, or general mystery system course. In other words, Greek and Caucasian medicine is based upon the first book or the first degree of African medical science. Yet with this limited knowledge, Hippocrates cured approximately 3,000 people in his lifetime. He did not know blood circulation in the body. He used the book stolen from Africa along with the information taught by the priest-monk health practitioners of the Esophagus temple cut. Esophagus is the Greek word for Imhotep. And I want to conclude with this. I thought this was very interesting. Back in Kemet, they had a simple disease cure for outbreaks of diseases. And it was wash your hands before and after birth, before you eat, with things we were taught. And they were, again, with Imhotep and the knowledge they had, they were able to sustain a lot of those diseases. I thought it was interesting because they had the basic knowledge that we need today in this pandemic, and that is to wash your hands. And so that concludes, that concludes the medicinal. I hope you enjoyed it. I wanted to show you to go with your medicine. Any questions, comments?
Oh, excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
Very informative.
So I just for a moment, I think I got 1 minute. This is the mango and raw oats. These are all fruit and base products. Mango, and that one's good because you clear skin. Then you have the shea butter, which enhances your skin. These are made by Yandane, black owned and operated. Muslims, they're up at, their headquarters is Green and Shelton, New York and Atlanta.
I went to the one in Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And what's that look like?
Oh, just like the one in Philadelphia. It's beautiful inside.
Good, good.
Very nice.
Then you have vitamin C, collagen boosting, lemongrass.
My favorite.
My number in a minute. So y'all, you're interested, you can write these soaps down. Cucumber, fruit slice. Anti-aging bar. Y'all look good and young, but just keep you young and looking good. Peppermint.
Mm-hmm. That's what
Lavender. Carrot. Repair your skin. Citrus burst. Similar to a lot of vitamin C in that. This is a big seller now. Tea tree mint. My favorite, mixed berries. Blueberry, strawberry, raspberry. Coconut milk. Oh, I see a lot of young girls buy this. Pink sugar and warm vanilla. For that eczema, this is excellent. Eczema repair. Want to go to the islands, guava. And then we go to the sea. Dead sea salt and eucalyptus.
Mm.
And Dead Sea mud, skin replenishing bar. And that's about it, folks. Oh, I have my whipped shea butters. This one was kind of sitting out in the car. You see a little, it's melting. I won't sell you that. And this one is the white shea butter. So the products are, the soaps are, get the special, you get 5 for $25. And what we did previously, I'll show you again. Black soap, joy lotion. This is peaches and peppermint. Tangerine grapefruit, what I use. My Uno #1 seller, Mango. And my wife's favorite, Sunburst, which is honey and vanilla. And those again, especially call me at that number, 609-841-7514. You get 5 soaps for $25. And you get 3 of these products for $24. I will deliver, no shipping.
How much is the shea butter?
$7.
Okay.
And so I hope to hear from y'all. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
I learned a lot doing the research, even more, and I really appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you, brother.
Really, thank you. Thank you. And my sister today gave me that information about the Social Security. I'm